Okay, hello everybody, this is Finn, and I'm going to show you how to use a software called Kialo. So we're going to start by going to this URL, kialo-edu, so that's kialo-edu.com. You will have to make an account when you first log in. I already have an account, but you can do that just with your UTS Gmail because this has pretty good Google Suite integration. You can pause the video in order to do that. And once you come back, we can go to topics. So Kialo is basically a debate platform, and this is the educational version of Kialo that is made for use in the classroom. There's a few different ways to use this software. You can create your own template if you go to this menu in the corner here, but we're actually just going to start off with some of these pre-made templates because I think that's the easiest way to use this software. I'm going to have you click on literature here and click on ages 11 to 13 in these drop downs. You see they have lots of subjects and ages. You could use this software for pretty much any subject. Today we're going to click this template. So this is a debate question on the book The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton, which some of you may have read in grade school. I remember reading it in grade school. It gives you a little preview, and you're going to click on Use Template, Include Starter Claims. So it gives you all of this information that comes with the template. This is stuff you can change and alter to suit your needs. For today, we're just going to keep it all here so that we can see the features. But when we get to this menu, we are going to click Enable Tasks, and we'll see what that means once we get into the program. I'm going to have you check off this box, write claims in total, and let's say 2 claims, and the last one, vote on claims, let's say 5 claims. Then we can continue. We're going to do standard. We're going to click all of these 3 boxes and then the check mark. And this brings us into the debate. So this is what you would see. And this is also what students would see once you shared it with them. There's a big question. There's some background information. Again, you could edit this to what you wanted it to be. And then we have this discussion topology, which we'll come back to that because it's easier to understand what's going on here once we get into it. We enter and we get this screen. What we have here is this little flow chart, and the flow chart represents this debate that's happening here. So this template comes preloaded with this thesis, these 2 arguments in favor of the thesis, and these 2 claims against the thesis. So your students could be presented with something like this. You could also, in advance, prepare a more complex argument if you wanted to. And the first feature that we have here is the voting feature. So you can have all your participants vote on each of these claims. So they can vote on the thesis on a scale of 0 to 4, what is the veracity of the thesis, the truthfulness of the thesis. So I can say, I agree with this pretty strongly. Let's say a 3 out of 4. I agree with that. And you'll see my little bar goes up. But I can also look, how do I feel about each of these claims, right? That might help me figure out how I feel about the thesis. So you might ask your students to do this first, actually. Rate this claim's impact. How much does this impact my feelings about the thesis? Yeah, I think that's an impactful argument or a strong claim to make. That one too. Maybe these ones I don't agree with as much. Oh, let's say that I don't agree with this one at all. You'll see this little thing popped up, task completed. And that refers to these tasks that we inputted when we started our debate. So this is just a way to structure your students' activity, right? Telling your students what to do and how to engage with the platform. So one of their goals was to vote on 5 claims, and we just did that. So we've completed that goal. When we voted, right now I'm just seeing the votes that I have made, but I could also choose to view different perspectives. So if I go to this sidebar, you see I just click that, I click perspectives. Right now I'm seeing all, but there's only one person that's voted, me, right? I see writer perspectives, and there's only Finley so far. But if I had a lot of students, there'd be all these other perspectives. And as an instructor, I can decide whether or not the students are anonymous. So maybe they see each other's names, maybe they don't. And I can choose whether they're able to see, everything that I see. But I would be able to switch between different perspectives. This is what Finn thinks. What does somebody else think? And I could see maybe they feel quite differently. At a glance, I could kind of tell how they felt about these different claims. I can also view the average of everybody if I click all. I can also get a little more detailed than that, right? So this is a good way for students to engage in, thinking from other people's perspectives and that sort of thing. The real meat of this software, though, is when we start to add claims. So you'll see one of our tasks, if I bring up the sidebar again by clicking here, my other task was to write 2 claims. So, I might write a pro. For now, I'm just going to do filler text, but I'll have you playing along also do this on your end, so you can kind of get used to what this would look like. And I'll write a con. And once you've done that, right, okay, ooh, task completed. And here I have a pro and a con, and you'll see that this has now altered our chart up here. We now have 3 cons and 3 pros. These can also be voted on. They can be evaluated. I can also click on this little thing to leave feedback as the teacher if I feel that I need to leave feedback. Students can also do some things. They can look at the voting statistics. If people have voted, they can also click on the little flag to mark the claim for review. So this is a bit of a peer review feature. If I think your claim is not a real claim, or it's unsupported, or you should move it to a different part of the chart, I can tell you that, and it will notify you. So there's kind of this collaborative peer feedback feature built in that also kind of serves to help moderate the discussion if anybody's being, inappropriate, as of course sometimes people do. What really makes this interesting is I can now click on any of these claims. Let's say this one. This seems pretty contentious. The novel has no political statements. Well, if I disagreed with that, I could just click on this claim, and now I can add a disagreement here. So I'll have you follow along and do this. You don't have to add exactly the same, things in the same places as me. You can make it more detailed if you want, play around with it. But this is just to show you what happens. Now that I'm debating not the main thesis, but I'm debating this claim here, this has added another layer to our flowchart. And if we go back to the circle graph, which I can click on here, the circle graph is also updating in real time. You'll see the darker areas and lighter areas are based on how people have voted, right? So the center circle represents the thesis. The red and green are the cons and the pros. And then the outer layers are additional layers of argument that are happening. So you can imagine once we get to, 4 or 5 layers of debate happening, and we have maybe 30 students participating, you're going to see a lot of changes to this diagram. And this gives you this really unique kind of visual representation of a group discussion. And as opposed to a classroom debate, students aren't bound to only argue for or against something. They're not like on opposite sides of the room, sort of like yelling at each other, which is sometimes not a great environment for collaborative learning. This is, a little bit of a different, more collaborative approach to argument. So students can kind of look at this as something they are co-creating together, right? And they can see at a glance, maybe there's a lot of arguments against. There's a lot of red and there's not a lot of green. Oh, but maybe through the shading, they can see how people have voted. Not everybody feels the same. Or maybe through the outer rings, maybe there's certain claims that generated a lot of discussion and some claims that didn't generate any layers of discussion. So students can kind of use that to just have a visual way of thinking about arguments. Of course, maybe not everybody... maybe that visual medium isn't accessible to everybody or isn't intuitive to everybody, but certainly switching between the text and the visuals for some students could be really helpful, right? Also, it could help for them model just a way to organize their ideas in preparation for doing things like essay writing and those essential skills that we want to teach. So those are the basic features that I have time to show you now. I really encourage you to play around a little further, look at the different topics and think about different ways you could use this software. I will say a major limitation is the accessibility features aren't incredible. This is a very visual software. It also relies on red-green differentiation, which red-green colorblindness is the most common form of colorblindness. So not a great choice, and there doesn't seem to be any alternative way to change that. So keep that in mind if you are using it. Check in on your students to see who is understanding what they're seeing and who isn't, because you might lose out on a lot if you couldn't access those visuals. But with the right modifications and supports, I think this could be a great way to facilitate some interesting debate. So I'll end it there because that's my 10 minutes. But thank you for watching and following along.